Before you spend another $50, stop. Seriously, stop and check your pocket right now. Because there are Franklin $50 quietly floating around in everyday circulation that look completely ordinary, but collectors are fighting over them for insane money. I'm talking about coins that carry hidden wealth, silent fortune, the kind of discovery that can flip an ordinary day into a life-changing moment. The scary part? Most people spend these coins without even looking. Nobody talks about these, yet real auction shock keeps happening behind closed collector rooms. In this video, we're revealing two of the most valuable and ultra-rare Franklin $50 ever discovered. And listen carefully, each coin we reveal gets rarer, more dangerous to ignore, and dramatically more valuable. So whatever you do not spend a Franklin $50 until you watch this entire video. Because the first coin alone has already stunned the market, and what comes next might be sitting in your change right now. Coin number 1. Imagine holding a coin that most people would toss onto a diner counter without a second thought. Yet somewhere out there, a collector is ready to spend $250,000 just to own it. That's not exaggeration. That's exactly what has happened with a very specific Franklin $50 that many Americans have unknowingly handled, spent, or lost forever. And the story begins in a year when the United States was stepping into an entirely new era. The year 1948. America had just come through the shadow of World War II. Factories that once produced wartime equipment were shifting back towards civilian production. The economy was adjusting, industries were stabilizing, and the US Mint was under enormous pressure to produce coinage for a rapidly growing economy. But something else happened that year. The US Mint introduced an entirely new $50 design, the Franklin $50. And that decision unknowingly created one of the most mysterious and valuable coins hiding in circulation today. Most people recognize the coin immediately once they see it. The front of the coin, the obverse, shows the unmistakable face of Benjamin Franklin. His portrait looks calm, slightly aged, thoughtful, almost as if he's studying the future economy of the country he helped build. Above his head, you'll see the word Liberty, bold and proud across the rim. To the right of Franklin's shoulder sits the national motto, In God We Trust, carefully balanced into the design. And just beneath Franklin's bust, the date 1948 quietly sits there, completely unnoticed by millions of people over the decades. But that date is exactly where the story begins. Flip the coin over, and the reverse design reveals something even more symbolic. Dominating the center is the Liberty Bell, the historic symbol of American independence. The bell's crack, that famous fracture running down its surface, is clearly visible, almost like a scar from history itself. To the right of the bell, you'll see a small eagle, added specifically to satisfy legal requirements that U.S. coinage include the national bird. Encircling the design are the words United States of America and $50. And tucked near the bottom, almost hiding in plain sight, is the tiny letter D. That little D mint mark tells collectors something extremely important. It means this coin was produced at the Denver Mint. And here's where things start getting interesting. Because the Denver Mint in 1948 was dealing with something collectors obsess over today, minting pressure. Production demands were high. Equipment was working constantly. Dies, the heavy steel stamps that press designs into coins, were being pushed hard. When dies wear down or experience stress, they can create subtle variations, unusual surface textures, and unique characteristics that make certain coins dramatically rarer than others. Now combine that with time. 70-plus years of circulation. Decades of pockets, cash drawers, vending machines, and bank rolls. Most Franklin half dollars from 1948 were worn down, scratched, cleaned, or melted for silver. But every once in a while, one survives with something collectors crave more than almost anything else: original character. And that's exactly what makes the specific 1948D Franklin half dollar with black layered toning in very fine condition so extraordinary. When collectors first encounter this coin, the color immediately stops them. Instead of a bright polished silver surface, this coin carries deep antique layers of dark toning, almost black in certain areas, mixed with subtle silver highlights that glow under light. To the untrained eye, it might even look dirty, but experienced collectors know something critical. That dark toning means the coin has likely never been cleaned. And in the rare coin world, that matters more than people realize. Because cleaning a coin, even once, can destroy thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands, of dollars in value. That natural dark surface forms slowly over decades as silver reacts with air and storage conditions. It's essentially a time signature that proves authenticity and untouched history. Collectors absolutely love it. Now let's talk about the physical feel of this coin, something that serious collectors always notice the moment they hold it. A Franklin half dollar has a diameter of 30.6 millimeters, making it noticeably larger than a modern quarter. It carries a solid weight of about 12.5 grams, thanks to its metal composition. Because these coins were made from 90% silver and 10% copper, they have a distinctive density when you hold them. There's a firmness, a thickness, a satisfying metallic gravity that modern coins simply don't have. The thickness measures roughly 2.15 millimeters, giving the coin a sturdy edge. Collectors often describe the rim and girth as having a bold, confident presence, not thin or fragile like many modern coins. When you hold one, you immediately feel like you're holding something from another era. But here's the shocking part most people miss: condition. The coin we're talking about is graded roughly very fine, which means the coin has circulated, but the major details remain clearly visible. Franklin's hairlines are still defined. The Liberty Bell's shape remains bold. Lettering is strong. But the coin still carries the honest signs of real history: light wear, natural toning, authentic surfaces. And for collectors, that combination can be incredibly desirable, because it proves the coin lived a real life, yet somehow survived. And survival is rare. Millions of Franklin half dollars were produced. But finding a 1948D example with strong original surfaces, natural dark toning, and preserved detail is a completely different story. That's why serious collectors quietly compete for these coins at auctions. The bidding often starts calmly. Then someone recognizes the toning. Someone else notices the original surfaces. Another collector sees the Denver mint mark and the preserved details. And suddenly the room changes. What started as a small bid can turn into an intense, silent battle between collectors who understand exactly what they're looking at. Because coins like this don't appear often. And when they do, collectors tend to hold them, not sell them. That's why supply keeps shrinking. Meanwhile, demand keeps growing as more people discover the Franklin series. Now here's the number that shocks people. A 1948D Franklin half dollar with exceptional original toning and strong preservation has reached market valuations around $255,000. Yes, $255,000. For a coin many people would casually spend at face value. Which leads to the warning I need to say very clearly. If you ever find a Franklin half dollar from 1948 with a D mint mark, especially one with unusual dark toning or strong details, do not spend this coin. And just as important, never clean the coin. Even wiping it with a cloth can permanently damage the surface and erase the natural toning collectors desperately want to see. Instead, the smartest move is to have the coin examined and professionally graded by a trusted grading service. Authentication and grading can confirm whether the coin truly carries the rarity collectors are chasing. That single step can be the difference between a curiosity and a silent fortune. Most people never look closely at their coins. They assume old change is just old change. But patient collectors know something powerful. Hidden wealth often hides in the smallest details. A mint mark, a color tone, a preserved surface, tiny clues that most people miss. And when you learn to recognize those clues, you start seeing opportunity everywhere. But believe it or not, the Franklin $half we just talked about is not the rarest coin in this video. Not even close. Because the next Franklin $half we're about to reveal has something so unusual, so unexpected, that collectors still argue about it today. And when one of these appears at auction, the price doesn't just climb, it explodes. Stay with me, because the next coin changes everything. Coin number 2. Let me ask you something that might make you pause the next time you see loose change sitting on a table. What if a coin that looks slightly dirty, slightly worn, maybe even a little unattractive, is secretly worth more than a luxury house? Because that exact situation has happened with a very specific Franklin $half from 1962. Most people see it and think the same thing. Old coin, probably nothing special, but collectors see something completely different. They see a silent fortune hiding in plain sight. And the strangest part of this coin's story is that its most valuable feature is something most people would try to wipe off immediately. Those strange dark black spots scattered across the surface. But before we talk about why those marks matter so much, you need to understand the moment in American history when this coin was created. Because 1962 was not a quiet year. The United States was standing in the middle of one of the most intense periods of the Cold War. Tension between the US and the Soviet Union was climbing rapidly, and the nation was heading toward what would soon become the Cuban Missile Crisis. The economy was strong, but uncertainty filled the air. Industries were expanding, cities were growing, and Americans were using more physical cash than ever before. The US Mint was working constantly to supply coins for a booming population, and the Philadelphia Mint, which produces coins without mint marks, was pushing enormous production numbers. Millions of coins were flowing through the presses. But whenever production pressure increases, something else happens that collectors know very well. Machines get tired, dies wear down, and subtle variations begin to appear in certain coins. Those tiny imperfections, those microscopic differences, are exactly what can transform an ordinary-looking coin into a life-changing discovery. And that brings us to the 1962 Franklin $half with no mint mark. If you hold one of these coins in your hand, the design immediately feels classic and strong, a design that had already been in use for over a decade by that point. On the front of the coin, you see the unmistakable profile of Benjamin Franklin. His long hair flows behind his head, and his expression feels calm and thoughtful, almost like he's quietly observing the future of American currency. Above his head stretches the bold word Liberty, carved deeply into the metal. Just beside Franklin's shoulder, the words, "In God we trust," appear, balanced neatly into the design. And beneath Franklin's bust sits the date that collectors immediately lock onto. 1962. Now flip the coin over. The reverse design shows one of the most recognizable symbols of American independence, the Liberty Bell. Its iconic crack is clearly visible running down the center, reminding everyone of the fragile birth of American freedom. To the right of the bell stands a small eagle, added to meet federal requirements for coinage symbolism. Around the edges, you'll see the words United States of America and $50, wrapping the design in a bold circular frame. But here's the subtle detail collectors check immediately. There is no mint mark anywhere on the coin, and that tells experts something important. It means the coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. Now, most people assume coins without mint marks are common. Sometimes they are. But sometimes, when combined with other rare characteristics, they become extremely valuable. And the unusual feature on this particular 1962 Franklin $50 is the one thing that surprises almost everyone. Those black surface spots. At first glance, they can look like stains, maybe even damage. But experienced collectors know these marks often form through natural silver oxidation and long-term storage conditions. Because Franklin $50 were made using a metal composition that modern coins simply don't have. Each one contains 90% silver and 10% copper. Silver reacts with the environment over time, especially when stored in old coin albums, paper envelopes, or wooden drawers. The result can be deep toning, dark areas, and sometimes dramatic black spotting across the surface. To the average person, it might look imperfect, but to collectors, those patterns can be evidence of untouched originality. And originality is everything in the rare coin world. When a coin survives decades without being polished, cleaned, or altered, it carries the genuine surface history collectors want to see. Which brings us to one of the most important warnings in coin collecting. If you ever find a Franklin $50 with dark spots or unusual toning, do not clean this coin. Not with a cloth, not with water, not with chemicals. Cleaning strips away the natural surface layer that proves the coin's authenticity and age. Once that surface is gone, it can never be restored. And a coin that could have been worth serious money can instantly lose most of its collector value. Now let's talk about the physical presence of this coin, something that surprises many people the first time they hold one. A Franklin $50 has a diameter of about 30.6 millimeters, making it noticeably larger than many coins people carry today. Its weight sits around 12.5 grams, thanks to its high silver content. The thickness is roughly 2.15 millimeters, giving the coin a solid structure that feels substantial between your fingers. Collectors sometimes describe the girth of the coin as bold and balanced, thick enough to feel durable, but refined enough to showcase its detailed design. That weight, that density, is something modern-clad coins simply cannot replicate. But here's the critical point. Very few of these coins survived the decades in original very fine condition with natural black spotting intact. Why? Because during the 1970s and 1980s, when silver prices skyrocketed, many Franklin $50 were melted down for their metal value. Millions disappeared forever. Others were cleaned by well-meaning owners who thought they were improving the coin. And many simply wore down after decades of heavy circulation. That means the number of surviving 1962 examples with authentic surfaces and strong details is dramatically smaller than people imagine. Collectors who specialize in Franklin $50 know this. And when they see a coin like this, one that still shows clear lettering, visible hair detail on Franklin, and a Liberty Bell that hasn't been completely worn flat, they take notice immediately. But when that coin also carries natural black spotting that proves it hasn't been tampered with, interest skyrockets. Because originality tells a story. It means the coin likely sat untouched somewhere for decades, maybe in an old coin jar, Maybe inside a forgotten envelope. Maybe in a dresser drawer where no one thought twice about it. And then one day, someone finally looks closely and realizes they might be holding something extraordinary. Auction rooms have seen exactly that moment happen. A collector quietly submits a coin for grading. Experts verify the surfaces. They confirm the authenticity. And suddenly, the market realizes something special has appeared. Bidding begins carefully. Then another collector joins. Then another. Because serious Franklin collectors know opportunities like this don't appear very often. And when they do, nobody wants to miss the chance. That's why examples of the 1962 Franklin $half with strong surfaces, natural spotting, and preserved detail have stunned the market with values reaching around $229,000. Yes, $229,000. For a coin, many people would drop into a vending machine without thinking twice. Which is exactly why videos like this exist. Because people are accidentally spending coins that carry hidden wealth every single day. And the worst part is, they never even realize what they lost. So, if you ever come across a Franklin $half dated 1962, here are the first things you should check. Look carefully for a mint mark. If there isn't one, that means Philadelphia. Next, examine the surface. Do you see unusual toning, dark areas, or black spotting that looks natural and aged? Good. That might actually be a positive sign. Then check the details. Franklin's hair, the Liberty Bell lines, the lettering around the rim. If those features are still visible and strong, the coin may fall into the very fine condition range that collectors actively pursue. But remember the most important rule. Never clean the coin. And before doing anything else, consider having it evaluated by a professional grading service. Authentication and grading can reveal whether your coin holds real collector demand. Because patience is one of the most powerful strategies in coin collecting. Many collectors who built incredible collections didn't rush. They watched. They studied. They kept coins safe. And over time, those coins transformed from ordinary pocket change into serious money. A silent fortune that most people would have overlooked. And that's the strange beauty of rare coins. They don't look dramatic. They don't glow. They don't announce themselves. They simply wait, quietly, until someone recognizes what they truly are. A piece of history, a preserved artifact, and sometimes a life-changing opportunity hiding in plain sight.